Where the line blurs was recognition. The terms of want was choice. Persona non grata was curation. Terms and conditions was power. And fault lines was pressure.
Temptation, Chapter 6. Breach of trust. Some betrayals do not arrive screaming. They wait in the dark, inside jealousy, grief, and the kind of hatred that learns to smile in public. But when old lies resurface and buried wounds are torn open, Alexis finds herself standing in the wreckage of a friendship that had been rotting long before it finally collapsed. The night Dae-jun needed. Dae-jun was out of sorts when he called Alexis earlier that evening. He assumed when Alexis left dinner with the Langley group that she'd made excuses. He was surprised when he heard background noise of the event, and a layer above shocked when Min-jun's voice permeated the phone's receiver. Dae-jun's impatience wouldn't allow her to return his call. He'd spent the better part of the night, post-dinner, agitated. The heat that constantly radiated throughout his body ravaged his mind and made him restless. He traversed the perimeter of the apartment floor plan as soon as he arrived. Longing and jealousy had long since he could recall rooted in Do-jun's core. He wanted Alexis so when she picked up his call for the second time. The sound of her voice alleviated a modicum of burn and ache, but that experience affirmed that she is what he needed. Just beyond the start of the witching hour, Alexis stood in the center of the living room, and Dae-jun couldn't believe she was there. She actually showed up. He didn't doubt that she'd ghost, but he knew deep down he'd keep emotional distance from Alexis. She'd gone along with all his terms, rules, willingly, wholeheartedly, without manipulation. Alexis' caring, cautious, selfless, whimsical, unconventional character woke something in Dae-jun that reminded him that there had been a day when he believed in love. I'll show up for him. Alexis noted the weight of tension when she walked into the room. She'd stood outside of the apartment considering the gravity of what it might mean for her to be here with Dae-jun. Alexis had been aware that she was falling for him. Several times over 6 months that she'd pushed for more vulnerability from him, and there had been times when he wasn't in his awareness that she could see the possibility of partnership with him. Those experiences woke something that had been long dormant in Alexis. The awakening was charged with an arousal that peeked its head from the recesses of Alexis's soul. I will have him tonight, and let him go tomorrow. Alexis whispered beneath her breath. Lightning illuminated the room in between the silence that rested between her and Dae-jun. She'd stood waiting for him to open the conversation. You're here. Yeah. Dae-jun took a step towards Alexis. What took so long? I had to dry off. Get dressed. Alexis took a step back. Dae-jun looked her up and down once, then twice. It's late. You came here in that. His voice is low. Yes, I did. Alexis held her gaze. That skirt, it's so short. Surely you're cold. Dae-jun took another step forward. Cold. Alexis's expression shifted with her gaze, almost like she was considering if she felt cold. She reached her hand to the middle thigh and slowly dragged her hand upwards until it met with the hem of her miniskirt. My skin doesn't feel cold. Alexis tilted her head in that coy way. When I touch myself, my skin always feels cool. Her eyes found him once more. Also, Alexis paused long enough to allow the suggestiveness of her previous statement convey an unspoken message. He hung on to her every word. His eyes fixed at the hem of her skirt, and thigh met. Alexis wasn't sure how to describe the expression on Dae-jun's face, but she knew she had his undivided attention. Alexis reached for her jacket zipper and slowly pulled it down to her navel. She adjusted one side to show that beneath the pastel seafoam green zip-up, she wasn't wearing anything beneath the thin fabric. Her sun-deprived chest looked dewy and rich against the jacket's coloring. Dae-jun's thoughts faltered. He blinked once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. "You're naked," he managed to eke out. "No," she said playfully. "I'd be arrested if I were naked." And then she unzipped the jacket until the sides fell away from the metal teeth of the zipper. "See? I'm wearing clothes." Before either of them registered what was happening, Dae-jun picked up Alexis and sat her against the windowsill. His face was buried in her chest. The soft, brown, delicate skin felt like silk against his lips, and just that much always confused him. He couldn't understand how a person could feel like sunshine incarnate. Lightning illuminated the room 3 times more before the two retreated from each other. Dae-jun's chest rose and fell to a rhythm of its own. Though they stood apart, he still held on to the hem of a ruffle on that miniskirt. "Let go," Alexis said, almost authoritatively. Dae-jun stepped closer. "Tell me what you want." "Director, sir." A wicked smile crept across Dae-jun's face. He closed his eyes and inhaled deeply. "You know what I want," he said with a poignant T on the end. Alexis didn't let him off the hook that easily. "Tell me or I leave. Director, sir." "Tell me now!" Alexis placed her hand on top his, the hand that still clung to her hemline, her fingers intertwined with his. "Dae-jun," she said firmly. "I will leave." The rigidity in Dae-jun's posture evaporated almost immediately. He closed his eyes once more, inhaling slowly. Is it that hard to say it? Alexis questioned just above a whisper. She didn't plead with him, nor was it a negotiation. A flash of blue-white lightning once again traversed Seoul's night sky, followed by the rumble of 2 people's hearts. Just as Alexis was about to give up on the situation. "I want you." "Excuse me," she shot back. Dae-jun, who up until that moment hadn't been able to really focus on her face to gauge her expressions. "Tell me what I need to hear." Dae-jun. "I need you, Alexis." The two found themselves tangled together again. This time their mouths were fighting for dominance. They'd been standing next to the coffee table when the vibration from Dae-jun's phone lit the small piece around it. Dae-jun let it roll to voicemail. 30 seconds later, his phone started up again. And then he knew without even looking who it was. He didn't want to break their momentum, but he knew the caller wouldn't stop until they reached him. Dae-jun pulled away to check the phones. Display, Victoria. 2 missed calls. On the second ring, Alexis picked up the call and set it on speaker. Used to talking with Dae-jun anyway, she pleased Victoria had gotten into the habit of launching into a tirade when he didn't pick up at the interval she deemed appropriate. Answering after the 2 missed calls qualified as egregious. As soon as the call connected, a barrage of insults and demands fell out of the phone's speaker. Alexis waited for Victoria to exhaust her thoughts before interrupting. "And don't ever make me have to call this many times, Dae-jun," she warned. "I can be there in 25 minutes. Victoria sounded so self-assured that Alexis couldn't wait to interrupt Victoria's delusional self. "Did you hear me? 25 minutes. Okay." Just as Victoria was about to give additional instructions, "That won't be necessary." Alexis broke Victoria's word vomit. "What the hell? Who is this? Where is Dae-jun?" Lava dripped from Victoria's mouth. By this point, Dae-jun no longer held the hem of Alexis's skirt. "He's here, and he can hear you. Tell him that I am on my way." "Oh, no, dear. There's no need for that." Alexis eased onto the couch and placed the phone face up on the back of the couch. She increased the phone's volume to full capacity. "He won't need you tonight. I've got this covered." Silence filled the space between Alexis and Victoria. "Right, Daddy." Inch by inch, Alexis eased herself lower in the space she'd been sitting, And then, deliberately, methodically, she opened her legs, exposing the satin thong she'd been wearing. Dae-jun couldn't believe his eyes. Victoria couldn't believe what the stranger on Dae-jun's phone just said to her. As the hail of insults and threats permeated the air around the device's speaker, Alexis slid her fingers beneath her panty line and began to work slow, methodical strokes. Her head craned against the top of the couch. Her breathing began to sound heavier than before. "Like I said, my man doesn't need you tonight, but feel free to stay on and listen." Alexis smirked the most mischievous grin. She tilted her head back again. "I've never done this before." Alexis, now pleasuring herself, was on the verge of seeing stars. "Come to me," she cooed. "I need you. Now." In 2 steps, Dae-jun stood before her. With closed eyes, she continued the intimate massage to the memory of Dae-jun's gladiator physique. It didn't matter that the real thing was standing before her. Performing the show fueled the fire growing in her belly. Dae-jun had ideas of his own. Desire and longing had ground his resolve into dust ages ago. Earlier that night, he wanted her, and now he needed her. To taste her, to feel the silkiness of her taut thighs flush against his face. However, before he could finally initiate the next move, she'd already changed positions. Her knees were firmly planted on the couch with her bare chest resting against the back of the sofa. Alexis arched her back, raising the barely there skirt hemline, exposing the cuff of her behind. Dae-jun immediately understood the assignment. The tension in his groin was enough to make him harder than the floor beneath his feet. His eyes trailed the path of her spine down to the dimples above the curve of her butt. The contrast of crimson satin against the beauty of her melanin was maddening. "I think this is what they call doggy style," Alexis whispered over her shoulder as she locked in on Dae-jun. His face bore evidence of a man stripped bare of any power he foolishly believed he had. She bit her bottom lip. "I've never done this before. Daddy," each syllable enunciated as the words hung on the tension between them. Dae-jun's hands gripped Alexis's hips and guided her back towards him. The gesture caused her to arch her back more. "There." He growled low and slow, and with that, Dae-jun gingerly eased the satin fabric to one side. He felt her wetness. The sensation on his fingertips intensified the anticipation of what was to come. In the small bit of situational awareness, Alexis decided to spare Victoria and end the call. As she reached for the phone, the weight of Dae-jun as he leaned down to kiss her spine had caught her off guard. Before Alexis registered what was happening, the sensation caused her to lose her grip on the phone. She tried to push the red icon onto the phone's screen. Instead, it fell to the living room floor. Alexis couldn't know for sure if the call disconnected. Dae-jun's rhythm was criminal. As if it were even possible to feel more pleasure, she found her rhythm as well, and between the two, neither the couch nor Victoria stood a chance. Over the next few days, the project team fell back into their routine, though an undercurrent of anticipation lingered. The Langley group had yet to give their final feedback on the Love Simplified app. Gia, Hajun, and Alexis found solace in sticking close. Lunch breaks turned into strategy sessions, and strategy sessions dissolved into distracted laughter. It was easier to wait when you weren't doing it alone. On day 3, Alexis received an invitation to a pop-up art exhibit hosted at the Schilla Hotel. The artist was new and provocative, exactly the kind of rising talent Alexis usually championed. But the venue tugged at her nerves. Her last visit to Schilla had been with Aubrey, and the memory still clung to the walls of the hotel restaurant. Still, she agreed to go. The waiting was driving them all crazy. Dressing up and stepping out might help. By 8 p.m., Gia and Hajun stood on the hotel steps, sharing compliments and laughter. Gia was radiant in a floral baby doll mini dress. Pink and deep plum tones danced over the fabric. When Alexis arrived, Ha-jun's jaw visibly dropped. She wore a neon coral ruche mesh dress that clung to her figure with intentional grace. The modest sparkle of her platinum and Swarovski necklace contrasted with the confident cut of her hemline. Gia gave a low whistle and grinned. "Okay, Alexis," she said. "I see you." "You look incredible," Ha-jun added, still visibly stunned. "I must be the luckiest man here tonight." They laughed, tension melting as they walked inside. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the hotel, unbeknownst to the trio, Dae-jun was already at dinner with the Langley group in the hotel restaurant. He'd arrived early for the meeting with Mrs. Steele, who confirmed they were ready to move forward with the app. Alexis would be thrilled. He made a mental note to tell her. Later. Across the table, Aubrey stirred her drink too aggressively. She'd expected Alexis to be here. She'd dressed for Alexis. The signature cocktail had disappeared quickly, replaced by soju she pretended to sip slowly. In truth, she was downing every glass like it might sedate the tantrum building inside her. She hated being caught off guard. Aubrey's marriage to Julian was a gilded cage. Each day with him tightened around her like a ribbon she couldn't breathe through. Her life had become curated, posed breakfasts, forced laughter, designer routines. Finding Alexis online had cracked something open. Alexis, so polished, so visible, had left her years ago without a proper ending. Aubrey never admitted the hurt. Not even to herself. She refocused that ache into digital breadcrumbs, soft filters, wistful captions, stylized nostalgia posted for an audience of one. She knew Alexis was watching. She'd made sure of it. So when she saw Dae-jun lean in during dessert, laughing at something offhandedly charming, the coil inside her snapped. She laughed a little too loud. She touched Dae-jun's arm a little too long. The flirtation was petty, obvious, and precisely engineered. Julian, sitting next to her, didn't seem to notice, but Dae-jun did, and so would Alexis. Eventually, Julian observed what he called the beginnings of a dumpster fire that consisted of his wife getting wasted over dinner and flirting with another man and a client at that. Watching the beginnings of Aubrey's inebriation, Julian sat in his thoughts about that dinner they'd shared with Engine's project team. That night, he'd been so disappointed with himself. When he and Aubrey returned to their room, Julian locked himself in the bathroom. He turned on the shower and let the water run without stepping in. He sat on the closed toilet lid, swirling his whiskey, the glass wet with condensation in his hand. Alexis had been right there, within arm's reach. There was so much he wanted to say, and nothing he knew how to begin with. He had tried to engage Dae-jun over dinner, to redirect the man's attention, to rescue him from Aubrey's sloppy desperation. But every time he opened his mouth, the words died on his tongue. Until finally, one lame sentence surfaced. "So, CEO Sung," Julian leaned forward. "Your project team did a remarkable job. How were you so fortunate to find them?" Dae-jun studied him for a long, silent beat. Julian was worried that Dae-jun saw a man carrying something emotionally heavy. He couldn't know exactly what that was. To Julian, the insider knowledge that the triangle between Alexis, Aubrey, and himself made it feel obvious to everyone. Dae-jun offered only a polite smile and a brief reply. He praised the team, word for word, the same lines he'd shared during the earlier dinner. Nothing more. When Julian hesitated, clearly trying to find the courage to say what he really wanted to say, Dae-jun cut in with a final announcement. He'd already covered the cost of the meal. His message was clear. He wasn't going to waste another minute of his night. especially not on Aubrey. As the rice wine kept flowing, so did Aubrey's compliments, slurred praise wrapped in flirtation. She leaned closer to Daejun, cleavage on full display, voice dipped low and syrupy. "You've always known how to have a good time," she purred, flashing a toothy grin as she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Daejun didn't flinch, but his gaze cooled. He read the situation instantly. Aubrey wasn't just drunk, she was performing. And she wanted an audience. He began to steer the conversation toward a polite close, thanking the Langley group for their interest and flagging an early morning meeting. But the damage had been done. Eyes had wandered, whispers had started. Across the table, Donna had barely heard a word in the last 10 minutes. She wasn't watching Aubrey. She was staring through her. The pit in her stomach had only grown since the engine presentation. There was no denying it now. The Alexis who'd stood on stage, confident and articulate, was her Alexis. Childhood friend? The girl she'd once giggled with on sleepovers. The girl she thought had died. But Alexis hadn't recognized her. She hadn't even blinked when Donna introduced herself. No small talk, no awkward smile, no flicker of recognition. Donna couldn't decide what hurt more. That Alexis didn't remember her, or that Aubrey had lied about everything. It wasn't some protective omission. It was a deliberate betrayal. A cruel one. Donna had wanted to reach out after the meeting, but something, fear, shame, uncertainty, held her back. And now the trip was nearly over. The clock was running out. Watching Aubrey degrade herself over cocktails and corporate charm made Donna's skin crawl. She suddenly felt nauseous. She wanted to leave. She wanted to be alone. She wanted to call Alexis. Julian sat stiffly, watching his wife unravel one sip at a time. He'd seen her like this before. Short-tempered, distracted, needy, then cold. But this version of Aubrey was something new. Frantic, desperate, curated to the point of parody. Her recent obsession with posting perfectly staged couple photos had blindsided him. But now, sitting here, it all clicked. She was spiraling, and it all led back to Alexis. Julian couldn't stop thinking about the moment he saw her again. After all these years, Alexis. She'd looked radiant, grounded, real. She was composed in a way Aubrey had never been, even on her best days. Her voice had jolted something in him, not regret, something deeper, a longing he thought he'd buried. His mind circled back to the day she left. No warning, no explanation. Just gone. The only clues were with the leasing office. 2 months' rent paid in advance, her name cleanly removed from the lease. Her mail had stopped long before. Aubrey hadn't noticed. Too busy trying to keep him under the covers. And he'd let her. Julian swallowed another sip of whiskey, the burn numbing nothing. Aubrey was now leaning over the table in her black camisole, whispering to the CEO of the app they were here to secure. He felt humiliated, powerless. He thought of Alexis again, how her presence had filled the room without trying. She didn't need to flaunt anything. She didn't need to beg for attention. He wanted to talk to her, say everything he hadn't before. Apologize for every time she'd come home and heard the betrayal through the bedroom wall. He remembered how Aubrey would suddenly become louder, bolder in those moments, almost performative, almost like she wanted Alexis to hear. But that wasn't about Aubrey. That was about him. And he knew it. Julian wasn't a victim. He was the villain. A coward who doubled down and married the woman he'd used to hurt someone else. And now, here he was, watching her unravel, watching the weight of his decisions play out in real time. He blinked slowly, staring into the middle distance as Aubrey's laughter grew louder, her words more slurred. There was no salvaging the night. And maybe no salvaging this marriage either. Later, that night, at the restaurant, as luck or fate would have it, Hajun, Gia, and Alexis had wandered into the hotel restaurant to grab a late bite after the exhibit. Their laughter rang light, easy, and unmistakably genuine. Daejun spotted them first. His gaze instinctively landed on Hajun's hand, resting casually at the small of Alexis's back. She looked stunning, radiant in a way that made Daejun momentarily forget how to move. His feet felt bolted to the floor. Then Aubrey appeared behind him, and froze, too, but not for the same reason. Joya was the first to speak, her voice bright. "Oh my goodness, what a surprise! So nice to see everyone!" The three approached like a glowing unit. Alexis had even invited Courtney and Evan to join them for dinner, a quiet confirmation that Gia and Hajun had earned a place in her trusted circle. With the flow of foot traffic thickening, the now group of 7 stepped to the side near the wall. It should have been a quick greeting. Julian was the first to speak. He opened his mouth to say something neutral, something meaningless. But emotion rushed ahead of thought. "Hi, Lexi," he managed, offering a strained smile. Alexis met his gaze with a polite, unreadable nod. "Julian?" Even her voice was poised, controlled. Julian noticed Hajun's hand still resting comfortably at her back. His heart was clenched. The jealousy in his chest sharpened like a shard of glass. "You look amazing," he added, a little too quickly. "I mean, the 3 of you. You all look like you're on a date." It was supposed to be a joke. It didn't land that way. There was a beat of silence. Then, unexpectedly, Daejun stepped in, clearing his throat. "They do, don't they?" he said with a faint conspiratorial smile. "That's definitely what it looks like." For the first time that night, he sided with Julian. Not for Julian's sake, but for Alexis's. Hajun answered first, trying to keep things light. "Oh no, we're just coming from the art exhibit on the 6th floor. Amazing interactive experience." Jaya chimed in cheerfully, but Daejun didn't acknowledge her. His eyes remained locked on Alexis, and more specifically on Hajun's hand, still resting on the small of her back. "Are you okay, Ms. Lane?" Daejun asked, voice flat. "It appears Mr. Park is helping you with your posture." His tone was dry, surgical. Hajun chuckled nervously. "Oh, no, sir. I was just guiding Alexis to the entrance, that's all." He glanced between Gia and Alexis, nodding a little too eagerly. "Right?" "Oh yes, right, Gia echoed. The girls smiled, but the air was shifting. Hajun dropped his hand from Alexis's back. The cheerful buzz they'd brought with them quickly evaporated. Daejun didn't care about the explanations. To him, it all sounded like kindergarten babble. "You've done something different with your hair, Ms. Lane," he said, still staring. "I just straightened it is all," Alexis replied, smoothing the loose bun she'd tied up earlier. Her fringe fell softly over her eyes, giving her an effortless sensuality. Daejun's jaw clenched. He wanted to hit something, Hajun in particular. How dare he touch my woman? His chest burned with possessiveness. My woman. His expression gave nothing away, but his eyes were ice. Next to him, Aubrey stood seething, caught between 2 men clearly having a visceral reaction to Alexis. And it pissed her off. The soju had numbed her just enough to convince her this was the right time to let loose. As Hajun began excusing the trio to head to their reservation, Aubrey lifted her hand and blocked their path. "You think you're all that, don't you? she blurted out, her voice sharp and unsteady. Everyone froze. You think just because you moved halfway across the world, you can escape who you are? Aubrey stepped toward Alexis. The group glanced at one another, confused. Alexis remained calm, her posture graceful despite the venom aimed at her. Aubrey, she said gently, I don't know what this is, but let's not do this here. She sighed. We can talk later, just us. We can really talk about what's bothering you. Alexis meant it. She didn't want a public blow-up. She wanted peace, dignity. But Aubrey wasn't interested in any of that. Realizing Alexis's attention was already drifting away, Aubrey stepped in even closer. This time she pointed a finger inches from Alexis's face, her voice taking on the sharp edge of scolding. You were always the smart one, the golden girl, the church darling, little Miss Perfect, she spat. Good grades, that singing voice, that hair. And you always thought you could have any man, didn't you? Aubrey sneered. But you couldn't keep him, could you? Her laugh exploded from deep within her chest, loud and guttural, her whole body jolted with it. Julian stepped forward. Aubrey, that's enough, he said, voice low and exhausted. Stop! Aubrey wheeled around to face him. Enough of what, Julian? She hissed. Enough of me? It wasn't enough when you jumped in my bed. Wasn't enough when you were sleeping with your girlfriend's bestie. She leaned in, eyes flashing. Right. The final breaking point. Every word Aubrey hurled was a hit, but only for everyone else. Alexis stood calm, composed, detached. The same words that once would have gutted her now felt distant, irrelevant. Maybe it was the clarity that came from surviving heartbreak. Or maybe it was Dae-jun. Through him, Alexis had learned that the thing she thought would always haunt her, being betrayed by people she loved, no longer had power over her. Still, Aubrey went on, high off soju and spite, relishing the performance. Then, from behind, a voice sliced through the noise. What the hell do you think you're doing, Aubrey? Everyone turned. Courtney stood near the entrance, eyes blazing. She hadn't planned to be here tonight. She definitely hadn't expected this. Aubrey's eyes widened. She hadn't seen that coming, and certainly not Courtney with Alexis. She turned, ready to snap. But before she could strike, another voice cut across the room. Enough! Donna's voice boomed over them all. She stepped forward, breaking from the background, her anger radiating. I cannot believe the hubris on you, Aubrey. She stood firm, facing her former friend. You are a hateful, deceitful liar. I don't know what happened to you. You used to be gentle, kind, thoughtful. What happened to that, Aubrey? A stunned silence rippled through the group. Even Aubrey fell still. Alexis blinked, turning toward Donna, processing her voice, her face, that name. Donna, Alexis gasped. Oh my gosh, Auburn Street. A tear slipped down Donna's cheek. Her heart had been pounding for minutes ever since she stepped forward. But now the emotion took over. Alexis rushed into her arms. The two women clung to each other, and Donna began to sob. It startled Alexis. She leaned back, hands still on Donna's shoulders. Donna, I'm sorry I didn't recognize you before. It's been too long. Donna's tears spilled freely. Joy, yes, but also years of pain, of loss, of grief. For her, the Three Musketeers had become two. And now, standing here with Alexis again, she realized just how deep that wound ran. See? Aubrey snapped, voice raw. This is what I'm talking about. Everyone turned back to her. Alexis is always the center of everything, every damn thing, and you flaunt it. Like I'm invisible, like I've always been invisible. Donna and Alexis stepped apart, They had stories to share, but now wasn't the time. Alexis finally turned to Aubrey, voice even but weary. Aubrey, I've heard the things you've said, but I don't understand. You've always been smart, talented. People admire you. You're beautiful. You've grown into a strong, remarkable woman. You have your own light. She felt Daejun's eyes on her, watching, assessing. She knew he was connecting the dots, who Julian was, how that chapter of her life closed. And she didn't want his pity. Not now. Not ever. All she wanted was for this spectacle to end. Your mom and dad are still alive, she continued gently. I assume they're healthy? You have a family, a career, you have everything. Don't, Donna cut in. Her voice shook. She stepped forward, reaching for Alexis's hand. Don't do that. Don't comfort her. Don't placate her. Tears rose again in Donna's eyes, but this time she didn't look away. Aubrey stiffened. Her gaze snapped towards Donna. Excuse me? She snapped. Shut your mouth, Donna. She stepped forward again. Her voice was lower now, cold, full of conviction. She owes me. She owes me that and more. And when she said it, it wasn't a tantrum. It was a verdict, the final blow. Donna couldn't hold it in anymore. She hadn't planned to say it. Not here. Not in front of Mrs. Steele. Not in front of Julian. Not in front of anyone. All she had wanted was a moment. Just one quiet, sacred moment to reconnect with the friend she thought she'd lost forever. But Aubrey wouldn't stop. She was on a warpath, dragging every person down with her. And before Donna could catch herself, the words spilled out like a rupture. You said she was dead. Silence cut through the room. You told me she died in a house fire when we were kids, after my family moved away. Tears returned to Donna's face as she clung to Alexis's arm like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her chest heaved with disbelief, and her voice cracked under the weight of grief and betrayal. How, Bree? She whispered, shaking her head. How could you say that? How could you lie on her name like that? To me, knowing damn well Alexis was alive. Donna wasn't angry now. She was pleading. Bree, Julian called from behind, his tone uncertain. How could you do something like that? His confusion was real. He stepped forward, voice quieter now. That's beyond cruel. Oh, shut up, Julian, Aubrey snapped, rounding on him. Just shut up. You're as pathetic as she is. Her hands flew to her hips as she scoffed. You think I haven't seen how you've tried so hard not to look at her since we got here? Julian kept his composure. Barely. Bree, you've had way too much to drink. Let's go, before this becomes even more of a mess. He reached for her arm. Don't. Touch. Me. Aubrey barked, stepping away, and then, in a single breath, she dropped the match. Okay, since we're truth-telling now, her eyes narrowed at Alexis. Yeah, I said it. I told Donna you were dead, just like your mama, your daddy, and your brother. The words hit like a freight train. Hajun glanced at Jia, panic flickering across his face. He stepped forward quickly. Guys, come on, let's go. Seriously, this has gone too far. He tried to usher the group away, but Alexis didn't move. Her feet were rooted to the floor. The mention of her family, that fire, had awakened something deep. That smoldering ache in her stomach, the one she'd carried for years like a hidden scar, flared to life. Alexis took a breath. Aubrey, she said, clearing the dryness in her throat. Her voice trembled, but she kept it steady. Talking about her family was something Alexis never did. And when she did, it was only with Courtney. Occasionally, in a fragile moment, she confided in Julian. But now the pain was public. I've loved you for a long time, she said softly. So much so, I begged my mother to adopt you once. I told her I wanted us to be sisters, forever. Her voice faltered. Alexis paused, blinking back tears. To me, you were like my missing lung, my other arm. She let the silence stretch, as if choosing her next words with care. But there's only so much a person can take. Her tone shifted, gentle but firm. I won't ask why you lied to Donna. That's done. I won't ask why you had to sleep with my boyfriend. That's done too. You're married now, enjoy it. You're building a family, you have a successful business. Your parents are still alive. You're surrounded by people who love you. Alexis nodded slowly, almost as if she were reminding herself of each word. From any angle, you are winning, Aubrey. So let's stop this. Here. Alexis took a breath, released it. Sleep it off, rest. Let's be done. She turned to Courtney. I think we should find somewhere else to eat. Without another glance at Aubrey, Alexis gently slipped her hand from Donna's grip. Jia and Ha-jun exchanged looks of relief and followed without hesitation. For the first time in a long time, Alexis was walking away, and this time she didn't look back. The breaking point. Aubrey began clapping her hands, manic energy buzzing in her core. So, you finally admit it, she spat. I am better than you. Mrs. Steele reached for her. Aubrey, that's enough. No, it's not enough, Aubrey yelled, voice rising into hysteria. Say it! Say it out loud! Courtney stepped forward, jaw clenched. Lexi, you don't owe this witch anything. Alexis gave Courtney a faint, almost serene smile. It's okay, she murmured, because it all ends today. She turned back to Aubrey, took a breath, inhaled the pain, the years, the truth. Bree, you have everything, everything. She paused, feeling heat rise in her cheeks. The one thing I've coveted most, you had it. A family. The words struck Doi-jun like a blow to the chest. It stole his breath. He'd misread her, misread everything, the night they'd been together. He knew then that she had his heart. But now, standing here, unable to stop this unraveling spectacle, he saw himself for what he was. A coward. No better than Julian. Watching the woman he loved get stripped bare in public again did something to him. But it all happened so fast, he barely had time to react. What did you say? Aubrey taunted. Alexis didn't flinch. She simply repeated the words. You have everything, and I have nothing. Aubrey grinned, victorious. Say it louder. Then she turned to Donna. I was wrong to say she died, okay? She's obviously alive. It's almost a shame she wasn't with the ones she loved. Maybe then she wouldn't feel so empty. She smirked. Am I The sound that cut through her words was thunder. Alexis's hand snapped across Aubrey's face so fast, so hard, it knocked her out of her heels. Gasps erupted. No one had time to stop her. Aubrey staggered, clutching her cheek, face flushed with white-hot fire. What the hell, Lexi? She shrieked. Alexis's voice came low, chillingly calm. Don't ever talk about my family again. Aubrey's humiliation turned to rage. You bitch! You can't do that to me! Who do you think you are? Alexis looked past her, straight at Julian. Get your wife. I think she's drunk. Julian stood frozen. Aubrey, shaking with fury, stepped toe-to-toe with Alexis. My mama was right about you, she hissed. Alexis didn't blink. Your mama was trash. The words landed like stone. She was horrible to you, Alexis said calmly. She never treated you with kindness. You know why I put up with your shit for so long? Because my mama saw it. She saw how your mother scolded you, berated you, hated you. My mama heard it, and she made sure you felt safe in our house. She didn't have to tell me to love you, Bree. Alexis's voice softened, not with weakness, but with sorrow. I already did. Alexis stepped back. You, me, and Donna. We were 3 musketeers, but that was then. We're not kids anymore. So when you talk about my family—" Alexis's eyes narrowed, voice dropping to a deadly whisper. "You better put respect on their name, or shut the fuck up." After the storm. Alexis looked Julian, Daejun, Mrs. Steele, and Donna in the eyes. "I apologize this evening took such a drastic turn. I'm sorry our dirty laundry got aired out right here." Mrs. Steele said nothing. She was at a loss. Julian didn't dare speak. Daejun started to step forward to say something, but Aubrey cut him off. "If your mama was so great," she sneered, "then why isn't she here?" That was it. Courtney's voice rang out, sharp. "Oh, hell no. Let me tighten this bitch up." She was already pulling off her earrings, handing one to Evan. The second slap landed harder than the first. It connected with Aubrey's already bruised cheek, sending her straight to the floor. Out cold. An audible gasp rippled through the restaurant. Alexis didn't flinch. She didn't gloat. Her eyes were glassy. Her heart felt like lead. This boundary, this moment, was one she'd hoped never to cross. But maybe the timeline for redemption had already expired. Maybe Alexis had just been the only one holding on. Julian and Mrs. Steele knelt down to check on Aubrey. Daejun stepped around them and reached for Alexis's hand. His voice lowered to a whisper against her ear. "Everything's going to be okay." He turned to Hajun and Jia. "I trust you can find your way home. Park. Make sure Jia gets back safely." To Courtney and Evan, he added, "I'm taking Miss Lane home. I'll make sure she contacts you when she's settled." No one challenged him. His tone was final, his presence commanding. Julian's eyes drifted to Alexis. His lips parted. He wanted to say something. Anything. But he didn't. Just like always, he let someone else step in. Daejun met Julian's gaze, raised a single eyebrow in warning. Then, with a gentle hand on the small of Alexis's back, Daejun guided her out of the hotel. She was silent. He didn't expect her to speak. He opened the car door for her, helped her settle in, checked her seatbelt to ensure it rested comfortably. Once inside, he leaned across her, adjusting the backrest. His face was close, so close she could feel the warmth of his breath. He wanted her to be able to rest. He removed his suit jacket and draped it over her chest like a shield. Only her hand remained visible. With one hand, he started the engine. With the other, he held hers. They drove in silence, the only sound the faint jazz floating through the speakers. Alexis looked exhausted, because she was. Periodically, Daejun glanced at her, kissed the back of her hand. She didn't say a word. He couldn't stop thinking about how beautiful she looked, even in this quiet wreckage. Her heartbreak made her luminous. By the time they reached the penthouse, Daejun had already decided. He wouldn't take her to her apartment. He took her home. They arrived at the top floor. Daejun typed the door code, led her inside. Knelt and slipped off her heels. She hadn't noticed when he picked her up and carried her to the bedroom. He laid her down like delicate porcelain, like something sacred. Alexis still hadn't spoken. Her throat ached from holding it all in. Her heart was heavier than her body. She just wanted her mother. She just wanted to be held. Daejun disappeared into the ensuite bathroom. She heard water running, clothes rustling. He returned a few moments later, guiding her gently towards the bath. Her dress was laced in the back. He took his time loosening the strings, until gravity did the rest. She stood bare. She didn't flinch, didn't cover herself. Instead, she looked up. Her gaze met his. Her eyes were full, but not with tears, with watching. She studied his expression, the crease in his brow, the tension in his jaw, the sorrow in his silence. Safe enough to sleep. Daejun knelt before her. Gently, he reached up and placed his hands on the edges of Alexis's lace underwear. His eyes never left hers. Slowly, he guided the fabric down her legs. When the panty reached her ankles, he helped her step out of them. He folded the garment neatly, placed it to the side, and then eased her into the tub. The hot water enveloped her body, and for the first time all night, Alexis's shoulders softened. She didn't know where this was going. She didn't know his intentions. But Daejun simply sat at the edge of the tub, filled a washcloth with warm, soapy water, and began to gently wash her back. The sensation felt surreal, like something out of memory. Her mother used to wash her back when she was a little girl. No one had touched her like that since. Alexis brought her knees to her chest and rested her forehead against them. Daejun could feel the ache in her posture, the weight she carried. He rinsed the cloth and asked softly, "Do you need anything else?" She didn't raise her head. She only whispered, "Thank you." To Daejun, it felt like she'd just said, "I love you." It took time before Alexis spoke again. While she recovered, Daejun ordered takeout. More food than necessary, just in case. He didn't want her to have to decide or overthink. He just wanted to offer comfort. It was over a dish of japchae that Alexis finally began talking. Not about Aubrey, not about Julian. Instead, she told him about the exhibit, how much she enjoyed the art, how good the food was, how she hadn't laughed like that in a while. She even smiled when he scolded her gently. "Courtney's going to think I kidnapped you if she doesn't hear from you." "You're right," Alexis said, still smiling. "She really does love me." "She does." Daejun nodded. "I can hear it in her voice when she talks about you." Later, after they'd eaten, Daejun asked gently, "Are you sleepy?" Alexis nodded, giving him a faint, tired smile. "I don't want to inconvenience you more than I already have. I can call a car service to take me home." Daejun shook his head. "You haven't inconvenienced me at all. I brought you here because I wanted you here. With me." Alexis let out a quiet breath. Some of the tension in her shoulders began to release. Her eyelids were growing heavy. "If you give me a blanket, I can sleep on the couch," she offered. Daejun gave her a look. "Why would I do that? I have a bed in the other room." "I don't want to take up your personal space," she said. "You've already done so much for me tonight. You must be exhausted, too." "I am," he admitted, nodding. "It's been a long day." "Right," Alexis said. "Let me just get a blanket and pillow." But Daejun reached for her hand. Gently, he guided her to his bedroom. Without a word, he picked her up and placed her on the far side of his bed. "You rest here," he said. "I'll take the couch." She didn't protest. Her body didn't have much fight left. The mattress was impossibly soft. Her limbs melted into it. She tried to stay awake long enough to watch him, but at some point, sleep pulled her under. She woke to the sound of movement. Daejun stood at the edge of the bed, adjusting the blanket over her. He was about to leave. "I'll be downstairs," he whispered, "if you need anything." As he turned to walk away, Alexis reached out and grabbed his wrist. Her voice was soft, barely above a whisper. "Stay." And that was all he needed to hear.
So now I want to know what you think. 1. Did learning the truth about Aubrey change your sympathy for her at all? 2. At what point did Aubrey stop being wounded and become willfully cruel? 3. Do you think Alexis truly got closure tonight, or only the truth? If Breach of Trust pulled you in, go ahead, like, comment, share, and subscribe, because temptation doesn't stop here.